Imagine waking up to find your closest ally has been sabotaging you for months, right under your nose. Today, I'm exposing the 5 behaviors that destroy lives, careers, and societies if you let them slide. Stick around because ignoring these could cost you everything. You've felt it, that gut punch when someone crosses a line you didn't even know was there. We're diving into the raw psychology of why these behaviors thrive in silence and how spotting them early gives you unbreakable control. From boardrooms to bedrooms, these are the red flags that scream danger. Let's break them down one by one with real tactics to shut them down. Boundary violations happen when someone deliberately or repeatedly ignores your personal limits, whether physical, emotional, digital, or temporal. It starts small. Standing too close during conversation, touching your arm after you've pulled away, borrowing your things without asking, reading private messages, showing up unannounced, or pushing conversations into topics you've clearly shut down. Each instance feels minor, but the pattern reveals intent. They are probing to discover exactly how much disrespect you will accept before you push back. Psychologically, this behavior is a dominance test. The violator watches your reaction to calibrate future intrusions. If you smile politely, laugh it off, or stay silent to avoid conflict, they register that as permission to escalate. Over time, your comfort zone shrinks. You begin second-guessing your own discomfort, wondering if you're too sensitive. That self-doubt is the real damage. Your internal compass gets recalibrated to their convenience. If you're tired of letting these unacceptable behaviors slide, hit like so more people wake up to them. The danger compounds in close relationships. A partner who dismisses your no around intimacy, a colleague who interrupts you constantly in meetings, a friend who shares your confidential struggles for social capital, these are not oversights. They are choices that erode autonomy. Tolerating them teaches the other person that your boundaries are negotiable, inviting further exploitation. The only effective response is immediate, calm, unambiguous enforcement. State the limit once. I don't want to be touched like that. Please stop. If it continues, create distance. Leave the space, mute notifications, reduce access, or end contact. Consistency is non-negotiable. Hesitation signals weakness. Protect your space ruthlessly because every tolerated violation chips away at your sense of safety and self-respect. Comment boundary if someone has ever repeatedly crossed your personal limits like this. Chronic dishonesty isn't about the occasional white lie to spare feelings. It's a persistent pattern where someone habitually distorts, omits, or fabricates truth, often without clear external pressure. This ranges from small inconsistencies, I was just running late, that accumulate to major deceptions about finances, fidelity, intentions, or past actions. What begins as convenient avoidance snowballs into a default mode of operating, where reality gets rewritten to fit convenience, ego, or control. The core psychological mechanism is manipulation of perception, both their own and yours. The chronic liar rewires their narrative to avoid discomfort, accountability, or vulnerability. But this creates a fragile house of cards. Each lie demands maintenance, more lies to cover previous ones, leading to cognitive load, anxiety, and eventual paranoia about exposure. For them, it fractures internal integrity, fostering guilt, disconnection from authentic self, and escalating distress as the gap between presented self and real self widens. Type LI. If you've dealt with chronic dishonesty that made you question everything. For the person on the receiving end, the damage is profound. Trust, the foundation of any meaningful bond, erodes gradually. You start questioning everything. Was that story true? Are they hiding something now? This breeds hypervigilance, like living in the boy who cried wolf aftermath, where even honest statements trigger skepticism. Intimacy collapses because genuine closeness requires vulnerability and reliability. You can't open up when you can't predict truth. Emotional safety vanishes, replaced by resentment, bitterness, and often self-doubt, wondering if you're overreacting or if the problem is you. In relationships, it poisons dynamics. The lied-to partner withdraws, becomes guarded, or mirrors secrecy. Resentment builds as manipulation feels condescending, treating you as someone who doesn't deserve reality. Over time, this leads to emotional distance, reduced commitment, satisfaction drop, and frequently relationship termination. In professional or social contexts, credibility shatters, people distance themselves, opportunities vanish. Tolerating it normalizes deception, signaling that truth is optional. The only path forward is confrontation with clear evidence, demanding transparency, and enforcing consequences if patterns persist. Without change, chronic dishonesty doesn't just damage connections, it dismantles the possibility of real ones entirely. Passive-aggressive communication is hostility wrapped in politeness or indirectness, designed to express anger, resentment, or superiority while maintaining plausible deniability. Instead of saying, "I'm upset that you didn't help," the person sighs dramatically, says, "No, it's fine, I'll just do everything myself," rolls their eyes, gives the silent treatment, makes sarcastic jokes, procrastinates on shared responsibilities, or leaves pointed comments like, "Some people are just so reliable," when you're not. The message is clear. You've disappointed or wronged them, but they refuse to own the confrontation. This style thrives because it shifts the emotional labor onto you. You're left decoding subtext, feeling guilty for something unspecified, apologizing preemptively, or chasing clarity while they stay above the conflict. It's a power play disguised as victimhood. They inflict pain without risking direct accountability. If you call it out, they can retreat to "you're overreacting" or "I was just kidding," making you question your perception. The psychological toll is cumulative and exhausting. Constantly navigating veiled barbs erodes self-esteem. You start wondering if you really are unreliable, selfish, or overly sensitive. Anxiety rises because you can never fully relax. Every interaction carries hidden landmines. Resentment builds on both sides. You feel manipulated, they feel unheard because they never said it outright, creating a feedback loop of distance and defensiveness. In any close dynamic, romantic, familial, professional, this behavior poisons trust and intimacy. Directness allows resolution. Passive aggression blocks it, turning minor issues into chronic tension. It also models emotional immaturity. Refusing to communicate needs openly teaches others, especially children, that feelings should be weaponized rather than expressed. The response is simple but firm: refuse to engage with the subtext. Name the pattern calmly. "I notice you're upset but not saying it directly. If something's wrong, please tell me straight so we can fix it." Then disengage from the drama. Don't chase, apologize for imagined slights, or mirror the sarcasm. If it persists, limit exposure or enforce consequences, reduced access, professional boundaries, or relationship reevaluation. Tolerating it rewards evasion and normalizes emotional gamesmanship. You deserve communication that respects your time, energy, and sanity. Entitlement mindset is the ingrained belief that you inherently deserve special treatment, privileges, advantages, or outcomes simply because of who you are, your status, background, appearance, past achievements, or mere existence, without corresponding effort, merit, reciprocity, or contribution. It manifests as expecting others to bend rules, prioritize your needs, accommodate your whims, or deliver results regardless of fairness or reality. Signs include demanding exceptions, "This shouldn't apply to me," reacting with outrage or victimhood when denied, "How dare they treat me this way?" Showing minimal gratitude, freeloaded efforts, or assuming others exist to serve your convenience. Psychologically, it often stems from overcompensation for insecurity, low self-esteem masked as superiority, narcissistic traits, or learned patterns from overly permissive environments. The entitled person views the world through a lens of "I deserve more," leading to constant comparison where they feel shortchanged. This creates chronic dissatisfaction. Expectations rarely match reality, so disappointment becomes the default emotional state, fueling frustration, resentment, and a self-reinforcing cycle of blame toward others or systems. Comment entitled. if you've tolerated that rules don't apply to me attitude for too long. In relationships, it destroys equity. One partner demands constant attention, mind reading of needs, or unilateral decision making, leaving the other feeling undervalued, exhausted, and resentful. Intimacy erodes because genuine connection requires mutual vulnerability and effort. Entitlement replaces it with one-sided extraction, breeding conflict, power imbalances, unhappiness, and eventual breakdown. The entitled individual often feels perpetually wronged, while their partner withdraws or mirrors the toxicity. In workplaces or teams, it undermines fairness and collaboration. Entitled people may shirk accountability, expect promotions without performance, resent others' success, or disrupt morale by claiming undue privileges. This poisons culture, increases turnover, reduces trust, and stifles innovation. Others burn out compensating, while the entitled person faces isolation or stagnation. Tolerating it normalizes inequality and rewards selfishness over contribution. The antidote is enforcing reciprocity, clearly state expectations. We all follow the same guidelines, withhold unearned favors, and create consequences for demands without effort. Over time, unchecked entitlement doesn't just harm others, it traps the person in perpetual discontent, blocking real growth, authentic bonds, and earned success. Protect fairness ruthlessly. It's the foundation of healthy dynamics. Gaslighting is a deliberate form of psychological manipulation where someone systematically distorts your perception of reality, making you doubt your memories, feelings, sanity, or judgment. The goal is control. By eroding your trust in yourself, they position themselves as the only reliable source of truth. It originates from the 1938 play and 1944 film Gaslight, where a husband dims the lights and denies it, convincing his wife she's imagining things. Tactics include outright denial, that never happened, trivializing your emotions, you're too sensitive, overreacting, shifting blame, this is your fault for making me do it, countering with false narratives, you're remembering it wrong, I said the opposite, withholding information or pretending not to understand, projecting their flaws onto you, and using DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim and offender, to flip accountability. Common phrases, you're crazy, it's all in your head, everyone else agrees with me, or you always twist things. Drop gaslight below. If you've ever been made to doubt your own memory or reality, the psychological mechanism exploits trust and vulnerability. Over time, often months or years, the victim internalizes the doubt, experiencing chronic confusion, hypervigilance, and self-blame. You question basic recollections, apologize for non-existent overreactions, and feel increasingly isolated as the gaslighter may isolate you from supportive people by portraying you as unstable. The damage is severe and cumulative. Victims frequently develop anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and trauma symptoms resembling PTSD or complex PTSD. A diminished sense of self emerges. You feel worthless, powerless, and detached from your own reality. Trust in others erodes too. Future relationships become guarded, paranoid, or avoidant. Emotional safety vanishes, intimacy collapses under constant second-guessing, and decision-making paralyzes because your internal compass is sabotaged. In extreme cases, it leads to isolation, substance issues, or suicidal thoughts as the victim loses agency. Share this video right now if you know someone who needs to stop accepting these patterns. This isn't confusion or miscommunication. It's calculated abuse to maintain dominance. Tolerating it normalizes reality distortion and invites escalation. Counter it by documenting events, journals, texts, witnesses, trusting your gut over their narrative, seeking external validation from trusted people or professionals, setting firm boundaries, and often exiting the dynamic entirely. Rebuild by affirming your perceptions, therapy for trauma recovery, and surrounding yourself with those who respect your reality. Your mind is your anchor. Defend it fiercely. Lack of empathy is the consistent inability or unwillingness to recognize, understand, or share the feelings and perspectives of others, treating their emotional experiences as irrelevant, inconvenient, or non-existent. It goes beyond occasional insensitivity. It's a pattern where someone's pain, joy, fear, or needs are met with indifference, minimization. It's not that bad. Deflection. But what about me? Mockery or outright dismissal. The person may intellectually grasp that you're upset but shows no emotional resonance. Your suffering doesn't register as something that warrants response, adjustment, or care. This stems from various roots: emotional shutdown from trauma, narcissistic traits where others exist only as extensions of self, chronic stress that numbs feeling, or learned behavior from environments where vulnerability was punished. Whatever the cause, the effect is the same. Interactions become transactional. You share something vulnerable. They pivot to their own agenda, change the subject, offer cliched advice without listening, or go silent. Over time, you feel unseen, unheard, and dehumanized. In relationships, the damage is devastating. Empathy is the glue of closeness. Without it, bonds turn hollow. You stop sharing because it feels pointless or punishing. Resentment grows as one person carries the full emotional load while the other coasts. Conflicts escalate because misunderstandings aren't repaired. There's no bridge of understanding. The empathetic partner often burns out trying to teach feeling, only to face more detachment. Children raised with low empathy caregivers frequently develop attachment issues, low self-worth, or mirror the same emotional flatness. Professionally and socially, it creates toxicity. Teams fracture when someone's struggles are ignored, collaboration suffers from lack of support, and trust evaporates when people sense their well-being doesn't matter. The low empathy individual may appear charming or competent superficially, but leaves a trail of alienated connections and quiet damage. Tolerating it normalizes emotional neglect and signals that feelings are optional. The healthy boundary is to stop investing where empathy is absent. Reduce sharing, limit expectations, enforce reciprocity. I need you to hear me without fixing or dismissing. And create distance if the pattern persists. You cannot pour into someone who views your inner world as background noise. Protect your emotional energy. Real connection requires mutual feeling, not one-sided endurance. Blaming others is the reflexive habit of deflecting responsibility for one's actions, choices, mistakes, or negative outcomes onto external people, circumstances, systems, or fate. Anything except the self. It appears as, "You made me angry. If you hadn't done X, this wouldn't have happened." The boss, team, traffic, shack economy is why I'm late, failing, stressed, or the classic, "It's not my fault." Even when evidence points inward, the blamer rewrites the narrative to preserve a flawless self-image. Excuses replace ownership, justification replaces reflection, and accusation becomes the default defense. Psychologically, this is rooted in fragile ego protection. Admitting fault triggers shame, vulnerability, or fear of inadequacy, so the mind outsources the discomfort. Chronic blamers develop a victim identity where life happens to them, never because of them. This external locus of control blocks growth. If nothing is your fault, nothing can be fixed by you. Learning stalls, patterns repeat, and resentment festers toward whoever gets cast as the villain of the moment. In relationships, it destroys accountability and reciprocity. One partner owns every issue while the other escapes scrutiny, creating massive imbalance. The blamed person absorbs disproportionate guilt, apologizes endlessly, and burns out trying to fix what isn't theirs to fix. Trust collapses because genuine repair requires both sides to meet reality. Blaming prevents that. Conflicts become looping blame games instead of problem solving, breeding chronic resentment, emotional distance, and eventual detachment or breakup. Children learn either to blame others or to internalize excessive blame, perpetuating dysfunction. Socially and professionally, it poisons teams. Missed deadlines get pinned on colleagues, poor performance on unfair conditions, innovation stifled because no one risks owning ideas that might fail. Credibility erodes, people stop relying on chronic blamers, opportunities dry up, and isolation follows. Tolerating it rewards evasion and normalizes irresponsibility. It signals that consequences are negotiable if you point fingers convincingly enough. The response is direct and consistent. Refuse to accept deflected blame. Redirect calmly. Let's focus on what we can control here. Or, I hear the frustration, but this part was your decision. Don't engage in defense or counter-blame, simply hold the boundary. If patterns persist, reduce investment, limit collaboration, emotional sharing, or access. Protect your energy from endless accountability sinks. Real strength comes from owning your part. Anything less keeps everyone stuck in cycles of finger-pointing and stagnation. Exploitation of vulnerabilities is the calculated act of identifying, targeting, and using someone's weaknesses, insecurities, fears, secrets, dependencies, or emotional wounds for personal gain, control, amusement, or advantage, without regard for the harm inflicted. It goes far beyond opportunism. It's predatory. The exploiter first gains trust or access, often by posing as supportive, empathetic, or authoritative, then weaponizes what was shared in confidence. A past trauma used to guilt trip, financial insecurity leveraged for loans or favors never repaid, a fear of abandonment manipulated into staying in toxic dynamics, professional doubts turned into sabotage disguised as helpful criticism, or intimate confessions broadcast for social leverage. The psychological process is insidious. It begins with grooming, building rapport, encouraging disclosure, creating a false sense of safety, then shifts to extraction. The exploiter may alternate cruelty with intermittent kindness, love bombing, apologies, promises, to keep the target hooked and doubting their instincts. This creates trauma bonds. The victim becomes addicted to the rare moments of validation amid the abuse, making escape feel impossible. Over time, self-worth erodes. The person internalizes that their value lies only in what they can provide or endure. Anxiety, shame, hypervigilance, and learned helplessness take root, classic signs of prolonged relational trauma. In romantic relationships, it manifests as emotional blackmail, financial control, sexual coercion, or using children as leverage. In friendships or family, it's borrowing money with no intent to repay, spreading private information for clout, or undermining confidence to maintain superiority. Professionally, it's a superior exploiting burnout for extra work, a colleague stealing credit, or using personal disclosures against someone in evaluations. The damage is deep and long-lasting. Destroyed trust, not just in the exploiter but in future connections, chronic self-doubt, was I too open, isolation because sharing feels dangerous, and sometimes physical or financial ruin. Victims often blame themselves for trusting too much, which compounds the shame. Tolerating it normalizes predation and signals that vulnerability is a liability. The only defense is vigilance. Share selectively, watch for reciprocity. Do they protect your disclosures as fiercely as you protect theirs? Document patterns and exit swiftly when exploitation emerges. No second chances for deliberate betrayal. True allies guard your soft spots. Predators feast on them. Your vulnerabilities are not flaws to be mined. They're parts of you deserving fierce protection. These 5 unacceptable behaviors, boundary violations, chronic dishonesty, passive aggression, entitlement, gaslighting, lack of empathy, blaming others, and exploitation of vulnerabilities, are not harmless quirks or just how some people are. They are deliberate patterns of disrespect that erode trust, safety, autonomy, and emotional health wherever they go unchecked. If any of these behaviors hit hard, comment alert or shocked so I know you're seeing it clearly. Every time you tolerate one, you send a clear message. Your boundaries are flexible, your reality is negotiable, your feelings are optional, and your well-being is secondary to someone else's convenience or control. That single concession compounds. Small violations become expected intrusions. Lies become the default currency. Subtext replaces honesty. One-sided demands become the norm. Doubt replaces self-trust. Emotional neglect becomes loneliness. Blame games replace growth, and vulnerability becomes a weapon turned against you. The cost is not abstract. It's quieter nights wondering if you're overreacting, friendships that feel transactional, relationships that drain instead of refill, careers stalled by unfair dynamics, and a slow shrinking of your sense of self until you barely recognize the confident person you used to be. Like if you're done tolerating disrespect, comment which of the 5 unacceptable behaviors hurt you most, and subscribe for more no-nonsense breakdowns on protecting your peace and boundaries. The antidote is not anger or revenge, it's uncompromising clarity. Decide once and for all that your peace, your reality, your energy, and your dignity are non-negotiable. Name the behavior calmly and factually. Enforce consequences without apology. Walk away when patterns persist. Surround yourself only with people who protect your soft spots instead of mining them. You do not owe anyone access to your life at the price of your sanity. You do not have to explain why disrespect is unacceptable. And you do not have to stay where your humanity is treated as optional. Choose yourself, ruthlessly, consistently, unapologetically, because the moment you stop tolerating these behaviors is the moment your life stops shrinking and starts expanding again. That is the only acceptable outcome. Anything less is surrender.